Welcome back, 747. Now, what do the TV shows Mr. Robots, A Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, and Blackish have in common?
Well, all three have main characters played by actors of Middle Eastern or North African descent. They're examples of positive portrayals instead of stereotypes, but that is pretty much where the good news ends. A new study found a number of statistics that really are staggering, including some that show that most of the time, actors like these are stuck playing characters ranging from terrorists to tyrants.
So that study was done by the MAAC Arts Advocacy Coalition, a group founded by actress Azita Ghanizada. Welcome.
Hi, thanks guys for having me.
So we were having a big discussion during the break here,
Right.
and we're going to have to bring everyone up to speed.
Sure.
So what is this study? What did you find, and what is the problem?
So basically, my coalition, MAAC, lobbied SAG-AFTRA, and the producers a few years ago began actively lobbying them because we were being erased and completely ignored in hiring quotas. We were not counted as a diversity category. We were counted as Caucasian. So we weren't able to be hired anymore in those kind of everyday roles unless they needed stereotypes, unless they needed to fill the role of a tyrant or a terrorist in some aspect. Then they wanted authenticity. But then I couldn't get a job just as a normal lawyer unless I was willing to put on an accent or a headscarf of some sort and otherize myself. So we lobbied SAG-AFTRA. Asaf Cohen, a member of my coalition, and I went after them, and we successfully added Mina to the casting database for the first time in 37 years. So we added new language in Hollywood. And we were lucky enough to have a PhD, Nancy Ewan, put together a study to kind of see what the actual numbers were on Mina now that we had the category. And what she found was really disappointing. I mean, as much as we know it, it was hard to actually see it. I mean, 2/3 of the time, I think the study found that 78% of the time that you see somebody from the Middle Eastern, North African region, they are seen as a threat or a terrorist. They're seen in a crime drama.
But didn't you think this is applicable because pre-9/11 we were saying, you know, most of the villains we saw on the big screen or on television, for lack of a better word, were Russian, or the Cold War era. Post 9/11, most people associate the villain to be Middle Eastern, and that's where we land right now.
Sure. I mean, so in that space, the Middle Eastern region has been completely over-dramatized. It's fictionalized in movies and TV shows all the time. But what you're doing is only seeing Middle Eastern, North African performers in that negative portrayal. They're not balancing out the playing field with actual positive heroes. There's not many. You see 3 wonderful examples of 3 well-rounded, complex characters on TV that are of Middle Eastern, North African background. But that's not enough.
So your study is now making headlines all over the place. You're in a lot of national publications. This happening on September 11th,
Yeah.
while this study came out. How is Hollywood reacting? How are executives reacting? Because ultimately that's going to be what matters, right?
Sure. I think it's a good you know, realization for so many executives, writers, showrunners, that when they do write Middle Eastern, North African characters, that they know that most of us, that MENA Americans, we don't have accents. Most of us aren't incredibly religious fanatics. That's not the truth of the majority of Middle Eastern Americans in America. So it's time to actually help change the narrative. I mean, you've seen how dangerous it's become, what the ramifications of continuing to exploit us in that way, both in the news and then oversaturated on hit TV shows in that space. It just has to change.
We've talked a lot about statistics, but for you personally as an individual, what has your experience been like?
Well, the last 5 years have been incredibly difficult. I noticed coming off of a series where I got to play a really well-rounded, complex character from a MENA background. All of a sudden, I was being asked to otherize myself. You know, okay, come in and play the lawyer, but she's wearing a headscarf. Or can you put on an accent? And that stuff, if it's a complex character, I don't mind doing it. Obviously, I'm an actress. I'll play the character. But if it's all that I'm getting, then absolutely not.
So you turn down work?
Oh, I turn down work all the time, and I receive things that are so hurtful and harmful, where I'm like, this isn't even written correctly. Sometimes the writers aren't actually doing enough research, and they're combining things that would happen in Saudi Arabia and attaching it to things in Afghanistan. So it's like misrepresentation of the cultures completely.
Well, you just brought up a good point. You're talking about on-screen. What about off-screen? What about writers and writers in the pool and, you know, showing diversity in that kind of capacity?
Absolutely. I mean, we have been engaging the Writers Guild of America and trying to get together a MAAC inclusion committee there so that people have a place to go. I think that's part of what this is. We're educating people. You know, I don't think people realize that we've been erased from the conversation, that we've been ignored from the conversations of inclusion, and that the writers have a place to go when they want to actually research these topics and not just Google.
Great. Well, thank you for helping to start that conversation.
Thank you
It's
so
great
much.
to see you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
And as she said, she was a coalition of one to bring this, and now it is everywhere.
Right. I mean, we have wonderful help. My fellow members, Amin El-Gamal and Amir Talai and Asaf Cohen. I've got a beautiful group, but and Nancy, Wang, she's done a wonderful job with this.
And if people want to learn more about it, where do they go?
MENAArtsAdvocacyCoalition.com.
All right.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Azita.
Thanks,